University students returning home screened for flu-like symptoms only. Maybank named as one of the world's best banks 2020. Hello and good afternoon. I'm Mona Priya. Welcome to Updates at Noon. There will be 2 standard operating procedures or SOPs implemented to control the spread of the COVID-19 disease involving domestic and international flights. Senior Minister Dato' Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob says the government has already made it mandatory for passengers abroad to be quarantined for 14 days once they reach their destinations. Elaborating further, Dato' Sri Ismail Sabri said the SOP was also implemented in Sabah and Sarawak for both domestic and international flights.
Kita benarkan full capacity ataupun sepenuhnya, bukan separuh, kerana mereka akan dikuarantin secara wajib apabila sampai.
The senior minister added that for domestic flights, the government has set the amount of passengers able to board the flights at 66.4% and at the same time maintaining the social distancing SOP in the aircraft. University students who were allowed to return home were just screened for flu-like symptoms and only tested for COVID-19 when they displayed signs of the illness. Health Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said this was because all of them had undergone a mandatory quarantine for 4 weeks. Dr. Nur Hisham said this in response to questions on why there were cases surfacing from the students when they had been tested. The Health Director General added that apart from the 2 infected UPSI students, a new cluster emerged among 3 students from University Malaysia Sarawak, UNIMAS.
Kita ada 5 kes keseluruhan. 2 kes ialah pelajar di UPSI dan mereka pulang ke kampung dan didapati ada gejala dan kita buat swab positif. Jadi apa yang kita laksanakan sekarang ni ialah pelajar-pelajar yang di kampus tersebut masih kita kawal, asingkan dan kita menjalankan kontak tracing dan juga menjalankan swab. Jadi besar kemungkinan ada juga 3 mereka ni ada terdedah kepada pekerja-pekerja yang dalam kampus tersebut walaupun mereka dikuarantin.
He said students could have been exposed to the virus at the campus cafe, but added that investigations were ongoing to determine this. He, however, assured that the ministry would screen all who have been exposed to the infected individuals and quarantine them. Asked whether the frontline health workers will be allowed to go on leave for Aidil Fitri, Dr. Nur Hisham said that would depend as the situation changes each day.
Kita melihat kepada keadaan semasa. Jadi setiap hari kita memantau kes-kes seharian dan kita akan melihat perkembangan terkini. Iaitu kalau kita lihat setiap hari sekarang ni adalah 2 angka. Dan kita harapkan kes seharian akan kekal 2 angka. Dan untuk petugas Kementerian Kesihatan dan Warga Kerja, kita akan melihat bagaimana kita mungkin akan bergilir untuk melaksanakan tugas kita dan juga ada di kalangan mereka pun kita akan memberikan cuti.
After more than 2 months of being unable to perform Friday prayers at mosques following the outbreak of the COVID-19, Muslims in several states have been allowed to conduct their congregational prayers beginning today. However, for the initial phase, only a selected number of individuals are allowed to perform the Friday prayers and other congregational prayers at the mosques and suraus in their respective areas. For the time being, mosques and suraus will remain shut to the public. Yesterday, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Mohammed Al-Bakri, said mosques and selected suraus in the COVID-19 green zones in the federal territories would be allowed to hold Friday prayers and other congregational prayers, namely Tarawih and Aidil Fitri prayers, in stages beginning today and limited to between 3 and 30 people, excluding the Imam. Perlis has also allowed Friday prayers to be held at mosques across the state beginning today, but only limited to members of the mosque committee, while in Selangor, Perak and Johor, the number of the congregation allowed must not exceed 12 people, including the imam and mosque committee members. Since the implementation of the Conditional Movement Control Order CMCO on 4th May, the country has continued to record two-digit new COVID-19 cases, with the lowest daily number in 2 months was reported on 12th May at 16. Barisan National Secretary General Tan Sri Anwar Musa says there is no need for BN to rush into registering Perikatan Nasional or PN as a political entity for the time being. He said the proposal to register PN needed to get the support of party members at every level and not just the top leadership.
Bahawasanya Barisan Nasional berpandangan bahawasanya ini perlu melalui satu proses yang tertentu mengikut perlembagaan parti-parti komponen masing-masing. Jadi buat masa ini kita tidak berhasrat untuk tergesa-gesa sekiranya proses pendaftaran itu nak dilakukan dalam masa yang singkat.
He explained that there was no time frame set for the registration of PN because what's important was that the parties involved continued to hold discussions. The BN Secretary General added that whatever that needed to be carried out should be done in an orderly manner. PN was created between the member parties of BN, Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia, Bersatu, and Parti Islam Se-Malaysia, PAS. The Regent of Pahang, Tengku Hassanal Ibrahim Alam Shah Al Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al Mustafa Billah Shah has consented to extend the term of office for the Menteri Besar and 10 State Executive Council or EXCO members scheduled to end yesterday and in June. Comptroller of the Royal Household for the Sultan of Pahang, Dato Ahmad Kirizal Abdul Rahman, in his press statement yesterday said Tengku Hassanal had agreed to extend the term of office until the date of dissolution of the 14th Pahang State Assembly. Dato Ahmad said that Tengku Hassanal also congratulated the Menteri Besar and EXCO members on the extension of their term of office and hoped that they will be further committed in continuing to serve the people and the state. He said in the new norm as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak, he hoped that the Menteri Besar and EXCO members can galvanize all efforts to ensure that the welfare and well-being of the people are not compromised while striving to maintain the state's economic growth. The term of office of Menteri Besar Datuk Sri Wan Rosdi Wan Ismail and the 8 EXCO members should have ended yesterday. All of them took the oath of office on 15th May 2018 before the then Regent of Pahang, Tengku Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah, who is now the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, who said the time limit was set to allow him to assess their performance and in addition to encourage the state administration lineup to work hard. Meanwhile, 2 other EXCOs, Datuk Sri Muhammad Sofi Abdul Razak and Datuk Abdul Aziz Mat Kiram, took their oath of office on 5th June 2018 and their appointment period ends on 4th June. Coming up next, unemployment rate may go up to 5.5% this year. Stay with us.
Semua susu formula ni tak cukup untuk anak saya. Enfagrow A+ mengandungi MFGM kompleks dan tahap DHA tertinggi untuk membantu menyokong perkembangan mental kerana masa depannya dibina hari ini.
Malaysia's largest financial services group, Maybank, has been named as one of the world's best banks 2020 by the Global Finance magazine. The bank joined the list together with its counterparts in the region, namely Australia's Commonwealth Bank, China's ICBC, Indonesia's Bank Mandiri, Singapore's DBS, and South Korea's Hana Bank. A report on the magazine's portal said, despite the current challenging external environment, Asia-Pacific banks posted a steady performance, supported by ample capital buffers, a low cost of credit, funding largely by the deposits rather than capital market, and a willingness to meet digitization challenges through innovation. Some observers argue that this bodes well for the post-COVID-19. The report quoted Graham Note, managing director at Moody's Financial Institution Group in Hong Kong, as saying that banks in Asia-Pacific are well positioned to weather the crisis. Maybank has presence throughout ASEAN, China, the United States and United Kingdom. The bank offers conventional and Islamic banking services, including commercial and investment banking, insurance, wealth management, mortgages, auto financing and credit cards. Maybank Group's brokerage arm, Maybank Kim Ng, meanwhile, engages in equity and bond underwriting, mergers and acquisitions, project finance and syndicated lending. All parties, including the government, private sectors and industry players, should carry out a collective effort to rebuild the country's tourism sector, which had been badly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister Dato' Sri Nancy Shukri says this is important to ensure the industry remains resilient and the country remains as the main tourism destination for international tourists. Commenting further on the matter, Dato' Sri Nancy also outlined 10 steps to be implemented, including revising the marketing and promotional strategies, making good use of technology and create collaborative efforts, among others.
Higher learning institutions, federal and state government, airlines, associations, schools and international partners of the same tourism theme are among who we can work with. A travel agent can work with another travel agent. Product and site owners can cooperate with travel agents. Event companies can join forces with venue providers and hotel. The time is to enhance collaboration or collaborative competition among the players.
The minister added that the country would also need to practice a more responsible tourism module by implementing new norms in daily business activities post-COVID-19. She said this after launching the Tourism Productivity Nexus Virtual Advisory Clinic, or TVAC, at the Federal Capital. TVAC is piloted by Tourism Productivity Nexus, TPN, and supported by Malaysia Productivity Corporation, MPC. The use of technology in the public service, which is now the new normal as the country faces the COVID-19 outbreak, could be considered as a post-pandemic practice. Chief Secretary to the Government, Dato' Sri Mohammad Zuki Ali, said the use of technology such as video conferencing had been introduced in the government sector before, but it is now fully utilised and provides many benefits.
Kita memberikan dorongan untuk mereka, umpama yang bukan IT savvy ni, kita golongan yang tidak begitu menganggap pendigitalan ini sebagai perkara yang mustahil. Selepas ini kita mesti memberikan dorongan untuk memastikan mereka bergerak supaya mereka menganggap ataupun mengambil kedudukan ataupun mengambil inisiatif untuk majukan diri sendiri dengan menggunakan IT sebagai platform untuk mereka melaksanakan tanggungjawab.
The Chief Secretary added that the government could consider using technology after COVID-19 is over to save on the allocation of new office space, and it does not require high equipment costs as fewer staff are needed to come to the office. He said this in an interview on the Bicara Narrative bersama KSN Norma Baharu program over TV1 last night. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Muhammad Zuki said the public sector should set an example to the private sector in following the guidelines and standard operating procedures set during the Conditional Movement Control Order CMCO. The Department of Statistics Malaysia, DOSM, says the country is projected to record an unemployment rate of between 3.5% and 5.5% this year due to the impact of COVID-19. Chief Statistician Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzir Mahidin said the government's move to partially reopen the economy during the Movement Control Order period and the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package would, however, help workers and households in facing the critical situation inflicted by the virus. Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzir said based on the government's economic reopening announcement, DOSM wished for a quick resumption of the economy. This is because when the economy starts moving again, there would be financial transactions that enable the economy to improve rapidly and create jobs which indirectly would curb the unemployment rate. Last week, DOSM revealed that unemployment in March rose by 17.1% year-on-year to 610,000 people for a jobless rate of 3.9%. Datuk Seri Dr. Muhammad Uzir said the job demand and vacancy status for the first quarter gave an early signal of an imbalance in the labour market. He, however, added that it must be noted that the government has implemented measures to balance the job needs, including for new graduates who number between 300,000 and 350,000 annually. Typhoon Wongfong makes landfall in the Philippines. That and more coming up in our foreign segment. A powerful typhoon hit the central Philippines on Thursday, forcing a complicated and risky evacuation for tens of thousands already hunkered down at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. At least 200,000 people live in coastal areas or flimsy homes in the province near where the storm, called Typhoon Wongfong, made landfall with fierce winds and heavy rain. Tens of millions more live along the typhoon's path, which is expected to take it near the densely populated capital, Manila. Because of the twin threat of the storm and the virus, evacuation centers in central Philippines will only accept half their capacity, and evacuees will have to wear face masks. The surge of people and limited space mean authorities have asked 47 big churches in the area to accept people fleeing the typhoon, which is the first of the season. Wongfong is packing gusts up to 190 kilometers an hour, as well as drenching rains that could cause flooding and landslides. Areas in the typhoon's path are under varying levels of virus quarantine, yet many people are staying at home to avoid infection. The Philippines has reported 772 deaths and 11,618 cases of the virus. The number is believed to be higher due to limited testing. The Taliban said they carried out a deadly attack on Thursday on an Afghan army base after the government ordered forces to resume strikes against them. The Defence Ministry said a truck bomb targeted the base in the eastern city of Gardes, killing 5 civilians. Officials in the city said the dead included at least 1 soldier, adding that a further 24 people were wounded, including army personnel. It comes after a particularly violent week, which saw President Ashraf Ghani rescind the government's recent defensive stance aimed at promoting peace talks with the Taliban and ordered troops back onto the offensive. The Defence Ministry said the suicide bomber detonated the explosive-laden truck before reaching the base. Photos show a major portion of the wall surrounding it was, however, damaged. On Tuesday, gunmen stormed a hospital in Kabul, killing at least 24 people, including infants and nurses. It was followed shortly after by a suicide bombing at a funeral in the eastern province of Nangarhar, which killed 32 mourners. The United Nations Security Council condemned the heinous and cowardly terrorist attacks. 8 protesters were arrested during a rally in Sofia on Thursday, at which 2,000 people protested against the lockdown and other measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. Now, the rally, organized by the radical left-wing Vazrazdin group, was the first mass gathering of people since Bulgaria imposed restrictions on movement and other measures as part of a nationwide state of emergency brought in on 13th March to halt the spread of COVID-19. But was immediately replaced by a health emergency situation, which has similar effects. The Interior Ministry said 8 demonstrators were detained for various reasons and slammed the rally as a brutal violation of the anti-epidemic measures that ban gatherings of large numbers of people. There were brief skirmishes, but no serious injuries, as the demonstrators tried to break police cordons outside parliament buildings in downtown Sofia. Some of those gathered claimed the COVID-19 was fake news and an international conspiracy. So far, the country of just under 7 million has escaped the worst of the pandemic, with a total of 2,100 infections and 99 deaths. Bulgaria's restrictions on movement were not as strict as elsewhere, with people allowed to leave their houses at any time. All restrictions have been gradually lifted since last week, with movement between cities now permitted. Restaurants, bars, cafes, and even swimming pools and cinemas have resumed businesses, albeit under heightened distancing and disinfection requirements. Volunteers sprayed disinfectant distributed by Houthi authorities in Sana'a as part of measures to stem the spread of the coronavirus, which has already infected 87 people and killed 13 in war-torn Yemen. Well, coronavirus is speeding up in Yemen, with yet more provinces recording their first cases and fears rising for many of the millions displaced by the country's ongoing civil war. The Yemeni Health Ministry has now reported outbreaks in 8 provinces controlled by the internationally recognized government and the United Nations, saying that the virus is spreading locally.
تدشن أمانة العاصمة باللجنة الفنية وغرفة الطوارئ البرنامج المتعلق بالتعقيم والاستخدام التشاركي الذي سيتم من خلاله وضع المادة الكلور المخصصة لعملية الرش، ومن ثم تأتي التحرك المجتمعي ليكون عملية التعقيم مجتمعية بامتياز وبدعم من أمانة العاصمة.
There are now 70 confirmed cases and 12 deaths in Yemen. On Wednesday, the Supreme National Emergency Committee combating the COVID-19 outbreak in Yemen announced 5 new cases in Aden and Lash, and the first case detected in Marib. Coming up in sports, Carlos Sainz to succeed Vettel at Ferrari next season. Spanish driver Carlos Sainz will replace a 4-time Formula One world champion Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari next season. Sainz, 25, will leave McLaren following the 2020 season to partner 22-year-old Charles Leclerc at Ferrari, forming the team's youngest pairing in the past 50 years. Carlos has proven to be very talented and has shown that he has the technical ability and the right attributes to make him an ideal fit with the family. Sainz emerged in pole position to succeed Vettel at Maranello after the German announced on Tuesday he was quitting Ferrari after talks over a new contract broke down. Sainz, whose father, also Carlos, is a 2-time World Rally champion, has previously driven for Red Bull's feeder team Toro Rosso and Renault before impressing with McLaren last season. He secured the once all-conquering British team's first podium place in almost 6 years in Brazil last year. year. Signing Saints will also end any lingering speculation about six-time champion Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes for Ferrari. Meanwhile, Australian Daniel Ricciardo will drive for McLaren in Formula One next season after signing a multi-year deal that will see him replace Ferrari-bound Carlos Sainz. Ricciardo, 30, will line up alongside Britain's Lando Norris, 20, at McLaren in 2021 after he leaves Renault at the end of this season. McLaren team principal Andreas Seidel said Daniel is a proven race winner and his experience, commitment and energy will be a valuable addition to McLaren and their mission to return to the front of the field. Ricciardo has won 7 races and recorded 29 podium finishes since his F1 debut with the HRT team at British Grand Prix in 2011. He drove for Red Bull's junior team Toro Rosso in 2012 and 2013 before making the jump to the flagship Red Bull team in 2014. He finished third in the driver's standings in 2014 and 2016. However, he failed to muster a single top 3 finish in his first season at Renault. After the first 10 races of the COVID-19 hit 2020 campaign were either cancelled or postponed, Formula One hopes to open its season in Austria with back-to-back races on the 5th and 12th of July. Birdsong and the rattle of the ball dropping into the cup, accompanied by camera shutters, were the only sounds to be heard as professional women's golf entered the post-coronavirus era on a closed South Korean course on Thursday. Spectators were barred from the Lakewood Country Club as the KLPGA Championship got underway in Yeongju, northeast of Seoul, with a host of social distancing measures in place to guard against infection. South Korea is a power in the women's game, providing 4 of the current world top 10, 3 of whom are taking part in the normally low-profile domestic tournament. It is the first high-level women's golf to be played since the US-based LPGA suspended its season in February, and with sports fans around the world starved of live action, rights have been sold to broadcasters in countries including the US, Canada and Australia. World number 3 and double major winner Park Sung-hyun, 6th ranked Kim Se-yong, a 9-time winner on the LPGA Tour, and number 10 Lee Jeong-yoon are part of a 150-strong field chasing the $180,000 winner's check from a tournament purse of $2.5 million. The highest in the event's 42-year history. Players are advised to keep 2 meters apart on the course and minimize physical contact, while touching the pin without gloves is prohibited. They have to wear masks before and after their rounds, but can choose whether or not to do so during play, with most deciding to remain uncovered Thursday. But with no spectators, the course was devoid of oohs and ahs, or even applause. And that concludes today's Updates at Noon. In our top story today, university students returning home screened for flu-like symptoms only after undergoing 4-week quarantine period. Join us again at 7 this evening for more updates. I'm Mohana Priya. Stay tuned to TV2 and have a great day.